What's going on, you guys? It's Nick Johnson, your favorite sports YouTube journalist here, back in here with another video. And today we're going to be talking about another certain NBA team and what to expect out of them. And that is the other LA team, the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, yesterday I did a video on the Lakers and what we expect from the reigning NBA champions this season. This time I'm going to go to the other team and talk about the Clippers and how we get to this point. Now, let's rewind back to last season. The Clippers, as we all know, it became like a legitimate super team after the acquisitions of both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And with the roster that they have, they look like a real hot contending team. With Patrick Beverley being a defensive lockdown point guard, Lou Williams, a career Sixth Man of the Year player, coming off the bench, scoring as much points on any given night, and Montrezl Harrell, supposedly the best big man, contributing at both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively, that best big man anchor that he can be. And all of a sudden, the Clippers became like a real hot commodity with the Lakers, and what could be like an anticipated battle for LA matchup. You know what I'm saying? But let's rewind a little bit and give you like a little quick history. As y'all remember beforehand, a decade ago, the Clippers were among the most worst teams and laughable teams in the league. Maybe until like Blake Griffin got drafted back in what was it, 2008, 2009? And he was like the first piece to fall on that Clippers team that was looking for a direction. Then fast forward to the fall of 2011, after the notorious failed blockbuster trade in history, in which has still been criticized to this very day, involving one of the best point guards ever, arguably the greatest point guard of this era, in Chris Paul, being denied to be sent to the LA Lakers in a 3-team deal. He goes around, still gets traded to Los Angeles, but this time for the Clippers. You pair him with Blake Griffin, and you got a young rising duo as we speak. Then you add in DeAndre Jordan, your athletic center. Then you have the Lob City era. Now, for the Lob City era with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan dominated LA for like 7 years to be exact. And from 2011 to 2017. And they made the playoffs every single year. 50-plus wins, all that. Never missing a beat. And you added Doc Rivers by, 2012, 2013. And you had a legit shot at competing for your NBA title. While the Lakers were on a downward trend during Kobe Bryant's remaining years with the Lakers, the Clippers were on the up. With CP3, Blake, and DeAndre Jordan leading the way, the Clippers became a hot commodity. 50-plus wins every year and never missing the playoffs. However, they're also known for choking it up in the most crucial of moments. Yes, injuries got in the way, especially to both CP3 and Blake Griffin. But even when they're on the court together, even when they're all healthy in certain moments, they tend to choke it up. And they collapse on the most unimaginable ways in the playoffs. And they just can never get out of the second round. They have never made a conference finals ever in their entire history, going back to their days as the Buffalo Bisons. And of course, the closest they've gotten in the Lob City era was they had a 3-1 series lead in the 2015 Western Conference semifinals, which is the second round of the playoffs, against the Houston Rockets, who had both James Harden and Dwight Howard when he was one of the best centers in the league. You had a 3-1 series lead against them. I mean, yeah, Chris Paul got hurt, but they collapsed the worst way possible. They collapsed all the way down, and they saw their season end in a Game 7 against Houston, and their season was lost afterwards. Now, I mean, think about it. This series prior against San Antonio, they knocked off the then reigning NBA champion San Antonio Spurs in a hard-fought 7-game series. It was capped off by a game-winning and series-winning layup from Chris Paul. And the Clippers just couldn't write off of that. They had a 3-1 series lead, then they collapsed badly in the second round against Houston. So that was the end of that. And then coupled off with another early playoff exits and whatnot, And that was pretty much the end of the Lob City era because Chris Paul got traded to the Houston Rockets. And after that, Blake Griffin got traded to the Detroit Pistons, and DeAndre Jordan left in free agency. That was the end of the Lob City era. Now, 2018-19, you had a bunch of young dudes and misfits. Patrick Beverley, Montrezl Harrell, a young rookie in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and a veteran stud in Danilo Gallinari. You got a team that secured the 8th seed in the playoffs, pushed Golden State to 6 games in the first round before getting ousted by Golden State, and then you were just riding off that momentum. See if you can build off of that. And come the summer 2019, the summer of big-time free agents, big-time trades, everything. Of course, you witnessed the Lakers making a blockbuster move to get Anthony Davis to pair with LeBron James. You counter that, awaiting the word of Kawhi Leonard, by signing him to a 4-year contract and pairing with Paul George. Now, if you remember free agency at the time, at the decision that Leonard made to choice to go to the Clippers, he literally told them, I will sign for you guys if you bring in Paul George. I'll sign with you if you trade for him, because that's the guy that I want to play with. Literally said that to the Clippers management, Lawrence Frank, and even owner Steve Ballmer, who I doubt knows a thing or two about sports anyway, in my view, But that's just me talking. But so yeah, you traded away. You for that move to happen, you traded away a whole bunch of first-round picks, Danilo Gallinari, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who just completed his rookie season with y'all. He was a first-round pick for y'all from Canada. Excuse me. And he balled out. You trade those away to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Paul George, who in his last season OKC was an MVP candidate. He finished third in MVP voting for that season. Third in MVP voting behind James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. He wanted to be out of OKC, leave Westbrook alone, and go to the Clippers. And that solidified the Kawhi Leonard signing. And from there, the Clippers, along with the Lakers, became the hottest commodity. And from the season opening matchup between the Clippers and the Lakers, it drew like millions of viewers. Because many people anticipated a highly known and battle-tested Western Conference final matchup between the Lakers and the Clippers, in which we all hyped it up to be the Battle of LA, as we all know it. And then fast forward, the Clippers won the first 2 games before the Lakers won the last 2 regular season meetings against them. They even up at 4 apiece, and the playoffs were all about Clippers escaped the Dallas Mavericks in 6 games while the Lakers dominated the Portland Trailblazers. Lakers took care of the Houston Rockets with Russell Westbrook and James Harden easily in 5 games again. Then the Clippers were on the verge of meeting the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. They had a 3-1 series lead over the Denver Nuggets in the second round. And of course, the turning point of that series was when Paul Millsap was intending to lay it up. He gets fouled by Marcus Morris Sr., who proceeds to get in his face after the Clippers were leading by 20-plus points before the half. Like, literally talking shit. And that's just basically the Clippers' mantra all season long that year. Some of the players had a whole bunch of shit to say, from Montrezl Harrell to Patrick Beverley, all over social media, and literally every single player that he told it in his face to that the Clippers are going to take it this year. It's like he guaranteed it. Marcus Morris, who joined in at the trade deadline, anchored that, said the same shit. Then you add in pieces like Reggie Jackson and Joakim Noah, who's more of a reserve player in my view. And then on paper, the Clippers, on paper, had the deepest talent of depth on their roster, and they were primed to win it all. Even Doc Rivers said it. He even called out LeBron James before the season suspended play due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Excuse me. And fast forward, they had a 3-1 series lead. Marcus Morris gets in the face of Paul Millsap, and Paul Millsap went off afterwards. Led the Nuggets to a comeback. They won Game 5. The Clippers, once again, had a huge lead at halftime by 12 or 15 points. They blew that, got beaten off the water by, 10 points, 15 points? More than 10 points in Game 6. Then came Game 7. I mean, the Lakers were still ready to take on the Clippers in the conference finals. They knew what they were up against. And In the half, they were up by 15 points or more. And still they blew that. They blew that up and got embarrassed by 20 points, lost the series 3-1, and blew a 3-1 series lead, and lost the series entirely. That Game 7 collapse pretty much puts the damper of how they're the most disappointing team in the league last season and have become the most cursed franchise in the league because they have never, ever been to a conference finals. At least once. They've never been there. And last season, we thought that was going to happen, but they choked it up in the worst ways imaginable. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George were absolute duds in that Game 7. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, who was the Sixth Man of the Year winner as of now, they were non-existent. And Pat Bev was not the defensive stud that we all thought he was. He wasn't. Everything else just fell apart. Plus, of course, Doc Rivers, yeah, we can blame him on adjustments and whatnot, not sticking with the same game plan, going with the best matchups possible to put the series away. But that's not is that entirely his fault? Of course not. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George had their blame. Their performances in Game 7 were trash, especially Paul George in the second half of those remaining games of that series. He was awful. He was so awful. He couldn't even buy his way for a bucket. That's how bad he was. And the Game 7 did him no favors. I remember that Game 7 where he just basically hit a three-point attempt off the backboard. That's how bad he is. And of course, he has a history of being absolutely trash in the postseason. And it's just sad. Now, fast forward to the offseason. You lose Montrezl Harrell to the Lakers. As he stated, the Lakers wanted him more than the Clippers did. And they already have like bigs in Anthony Davis and Marc Gasol. You add in Serge Ibaka. And of course, you traded away Landry Shamet, who was your key depth piece, as a deal to bring in Luke Kennard from Detroit. And I think it's a huge upgrade and a bit of an upgrade. Serge Ibaka might be better than what he was in his last season in Toronto. Of course, he was instrumental in helping the Raptors win the 2019 title, but kind of wasn't the same last year. You added those guys. And of course, you secured doubt of one of your two best players, of whether or not he's going to leave the Clippers in free agency, as you signed Paul George to a 4-year supermax worth $190 million. I talked about that in my in one of my videos a couple days ago, so be sure to check that out. I broke down the details on that. Now, it's a matter of securing Kawhi Leonard as well, because you don't know exactly if he wants to commit to you guys beyond this coming season, because this coming season will potentially be the last year of his contract. He has a player option after the season that he can easily decline and test free agency. And other than that, Paul George, I just don't think he'll be enough. I mean, think about it. The Clippers do not have a first-round pick until 2027. That's 7 years from now. All their first-round picks are gone because of Paul George. I mean, they were able to secure Paul George, but at what cost? Had you not made that trade to bring him in, the Clippers would be in a better position now than they have been. So, because of that, the future still to me looks uncertain. I mean, yeah, you gave Paul George a supermax, but Kawhi Leonard was like your big foundational piece. I don't know. He probably might leave after this season. So the Clippers, I mean, don't get me wrong. They'll still be a top 2 seed. And maybe this will be the year that they finally get to the Western Conference Finals in a way. But anything beyond that, I just don't see anything good happening, in my view. But and then again, only time will tell. They'll be positioned to run it back. I mean, after all, they got a new head coach and Tyronn Lue, let's just say promoted from an assistant to a head coach. You add Chauncey Billups to his staff. I mean, the Clippers may be in a better spot than what they was last season. Tyronn Lue is known for making adjustments. Won an NBA title in Cleveland with LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love. But hell, only time will tell. and we'll see exactly what the Clippers can bring to the table this season. So, yeah, and that's all I have for in today's video. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure to hit that bell button where you get my notifications when I'm going to upload my next video. And let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you think the Clippers have a shot of redeeming themselves, or do you think they've sealed their championship window as a result? Let me know what you guys think. So with that being said, I'm Nick Johnson, your favorite sports YouTube journalist, and I'm out. Peace.